I found it on a Tuesday afternoon while changing the air filter in our AC unit. A tiny glass eye, no bigger than a pencil eraser, embedded in the ventilation grill. At first, I thought it was a weird reflection, maybe a bead of solder from the factory. But when I pulled it out with tweezers, I saw the fiber optic cable trailing behind it like a snake's tail. That's when my stomach dropped. This wasn't some off-the-shelf spy camera from Amazon. This was professional-grade equipment, the kind of industrial borescope lens mechanics used to peer into engine blocks and jet turbines, the kind that cost thousands, the kind that Mr. Henderson, our neighbor and the neighborhood's premier car detailer, kept in his pristine garage workshop just 3 houses down. He wasn't just cleaning our cars, he was documenting our lives, and he'd been doing it for 3 years. Sarah was 8 years old when we moved to Maple Ridge Estates, a cookie-cutter subdivision in suburban Ohio where every lawn stretched exactly 40 feet from curb to door, and the HOA sent passive-aggressive letters if your mailbox needed repainting. I was 15, already deep into building my first PC from salvage parts, already the weird kid who preferred soldering circuits to shooting hoops. But Sarah was sunshine. She had this way of lighting up a room just by walking into it, her blonde ponytail bouncing, her laugh carrying across the cul-de-sac where all the neighborhood kids played kickball until the streetlights flickered on. I watched her grow up in that house, watched her transform from the shy kid who hid behind mom's legs at block parties into this confident, brilliant young woman who tutored half the high school in chemistry while maintaining a 4.0 GPA. By the time she hit 21, she was in her second year of pre-med at State, commuting from home to save money, still keeping her childhood bedroom with the glow-in-the-dark stars stuck to the ceiling. She'd become beautiful in that effortless, natural way that made parents at church whisper about their sons asking her out, made the neighbors smile when she jogged past in the mornings. I'd become her protector without either of us really acknowledging it. Maybe it was because Dad had passed when she was 12, leaving me as the only man in the house. Maybe it was just in my nature. I'd gone into cybersecurity after college, working remote for a financial firm, living in the converted garage apartment behind our main house, close enough to help Mom with repairs, close enough to keep an eye on things, close enough to notice when something wasn't right. Richard Henderson moved in across the street 6 months after we did. He was in his late 40s, divorced, no kids, with an engineered smile and a handshake that lasted just a beat too long. He made a small fortune in automotive restoration and now ran Henderson's premium detailing from his 3-car garage, a gleaming cathedral of automotive perfection with epoxy floors that reflected like mirrors and tool chests that cost more than most people's cars. The man was an artist with microfiber and polish. He could spot a single water spot on a hood from 20 feet away. He knew the exact angle to hold a clay bar to remove embedded rail dust. He could tell you the difference between carnauba wax and ceramic coating in exhausting detail, whether you wanted to hear it or not. People drove from 3 counties over to have Henderson work his magic on their vehicles. He charged premium prices and delivered flawless results. He was also, by all appearances, the perfect neighbor. He organized the annual 4th of July block party, manning the grill with an apron that said, "License to grill," flipping burgers with the same precision he applied to buffing clear coat. He helped Mrs. Patterson next door install her Christmas lights every December. He had spare keys to half the cars on the street. People trusted him with their prized possessions because he treated every vehicle like it belonged in a museum. Mom had him detail her Camry twice a year. Sarah's Honda Civic too, especially after she'd spilled coffee in it during finals week. Henderson always gave her a discount, always made sure to return the cars before she needed them for class, always left them smelling like new leather and looking showroom fresh. I never liked him. Couldn't explain why. Just something about the way his eyes would linger a half second too long when Sarah walked by. The way he'd find excuses to be in his driveway when she came home from campus. But I had no evidence, no real reason beyond instinct. So I kept my mouth shut and kept watching. I run a custom network setup at home, enterprise-grade router, LANs for different device types, Pi-hole filtering ads, the works. It's both a professional necessity and a hobby. I check the network logs religiously, partly for security and partly because I'm obsessive about optimizing bandwidth. So when a strange MAC address appeared on my 5 gigahertz network at 2:47 a.m. on a random Wednesday, I noticed immediately the address wasn't registered to any device I owned. It was pulling minimal data, maybe a megabyte every few hours, but it was there lurking in my network topology like a tumor. The naming convention suggested it was some kind of embedded Linux system, probably a Raspberry Pi or similar single-board computer. It had been there for months, I realized, scrolling through archive logs. I just never noticed it among all the smart home devices and laptops. I started tracing it. The signal strength suggested it was close, very close, within 100 feet. I walked through the house with a Wi-Fi analyzer app on my phone, watching the signal strength fluctuate. It peaked near the AC unit. That's when I found the lens. And that's when I found 5 more. One in the bathroom vent, one behind the living room bookshelf, drilled through the wall from the attic, one in the kitchen backsplash, disguised as a grout line, one in Sarah's bedroom, hidden inside the smoke detector, one in the shower, barely visible in the tile trim. All military-grade borescope cameras, all connected to a wireless bridge, all feeding to that mysterious MAC address. I spent the next 6 hours in a cold sweat, forcing myself to be methodical. I didn't touch the cameras, didn't want to alert whoever was watching. Instead, I set up a packet capture, intercepting the encrypted data stream. The encryption was strong, but whoever set this up had made one critical mistake. They'd reused the default SSH credentials on the collection server. I cracked in at 4:13 a.m., and I found the archive. 12 terabytes of footage, organized by date and camera location. Folders labeled with clinical precision: kitchen_morning, bedroom_evening, bathroom_shower. The earliest files were time-stamped 3 years for months and 16 days ago, right after Henderson had detailed Sarah's car for the first time and asked to borrow our garage to store some equipment during a roof repair. I watched 30 seconds of footage, watched my sister brushing her teeth in the bathroom mirror, unaware of the eye watching her. That's all I could stomach before I had to run to my own bathroom and throw up. When I came back to my desk, hands shaking, I started digging into the metadata. The server was hosted locally, within 100 yards. I pulled up a war-driving map of nearby Wi-Fi networks and cross-referenced signal strength. The server was in Henderson's garage. My first instinct was to call the police, drive straight to the station, show them everything, watch them kick down Henderson's door. But I'd worked in cybersecurity long enough to know that predators like this always had a contingency plan. Henderson was a perfectionist. He absolutely had a kill switch, probably a script that would wipe the drives if anyone tried to access them without the right password sequence. The police would need a warrant. That would take hours, maybe days. Henderson would know the moment they showed up, and he'd torch the evidence. I needed a confession. I needed him to admit what he'd done, recorded on equipment admissible in court, and I needed to make sure the evidence couldn't disappear. Henderson's house was a smart home enthusiast dream. Alexa in every room, Philips Hue lights, a Ring doorbell, smart locks, the works. I'd seen him bragging about it at a block party, showing off how he could control everything from his phone. What he didn't know is that most consumer smart home equipment is laughably insecure if you know what you're doing. I waited until 2 a.m. on a Friday night when I knew Henderson would be asleep. I dressed in black, hood up, and crossed the street like a shadow. My heart was hammering so hard, I thought it might crack a rib. I'd bypassed network security from behind a keyboard 1,000 times, but physically breaking into someone's property, even for the right reasons, made my hands shake. His garage had a side door with a smart lock. I'd already cloned the authentication token from his Wi-Fi traffic. It clicked open with a quiet beep that sounded like a gunshot in the silent subdivision. The garage smelled like chemicals and money, ceramic coating compounds, isopropyl alcohol, expensive carnauba wax. His workbench was immaculate, tools arranged by size and type with Prussian efficiency. And there, in the corner on a custom-built server rack with professional cable management, sat the heart of his surveillance network. I had brought a USB rubber ducky, a device that looks like a thumb drive but executes programmed keystrokes at superhuman speed. I plugged it into the server's keyboard port. It took 47 seconds to inject my backdoor into his system. Now I had root access. Now I could see everything he saw, and more importantly, I could make his fortress turn against him. I also planted 3 cameras of my own in his garage. Cheap Chinese models from Amazon, ironically similar to what people think spy cameras look like. I hid them in his tool chests and shelving. If I was going to take him down, I needed footage of his reaction. Sunday evening. Henderson was home alone, comfortable in his fortress. At 7:47 p.m., I triggered the script. His house turned into a digital nightmare. Every screen. The 75-inch TV, his workstation, even the fridge display. Ignited with Sarah's footage. I'd edited it into a relentless, high-definition montage of his own violations. The surround sound system erupted, playing his own whispered, obsessive voice looped into a sickening, discordant chorus. I watched through the hidden cameras I'd planted in his garage. He scrambled into the living room, face ashen, frantically clawing at his keyboards. But I'd frozen him out. His smart lights began strobing in a violent, blinding red, turning his pristine home into a chaotic interrogation room. He lunged for the server rack to cut the power, but I'd set the system to fail safe. The footage kept playing on battery backup. I broadcast my voice through his Sonos speakers. You wanted to watch, Richard. Now the whole house is watching you. He collapsed against his workbench, the engineered, perfect persona shattering into raw, pathetic terror. The hunter had officially become the prey. I gave him one choice: sit in his garage and confess to every camera, or I would blast his archive to the entire neighborhood, the police, and his employers. 20 minutes later, he broke. He sat in his immaculate garage, surrounded by his own gear, and detailed every crime. The years of stalking, the borescope cameras drilled into walls, the systematic violation of 4 households. He didn't know I was recording his confession on his own high-end equipment. I called the police the moment he finished. Watching the squad cars pull up was the single greatest relief of my life. The forensic team found $40,000 of surveillance gear and enough digital evidence to bury him for life. He took a plea deal, 23 years. Sarah is in therapy, slowly healing, but the damage is profound. I still live in the garage apartment, keeping watch. We buy into the suburban illusion of safety, trusting the neighbor with the clean car and the friendly wave. But monsters don't just live in dark alleys. They hide behind manicured lawns, waiting for you to look away. Some stains, no matter how much you polish, never come out.